Do you ever wonder about the Hundred Years' War? How it came to be, what it was for, and who was it between? What was its purpose? Well, the Hundred Years' War took place between 1337 and 1453. It was a fight between England and France, between King Edward III and King Philip VI, on who should be in charge of France. This historical moment left a big mark on both England and France. Among the causes of the Hundred Years' War was because of the claim to the French throne, because of territorial disputes, and because of economic tension. Here are among the key figures of the Hundred Years' War. King Edward III, where he had the belief that he had the right to the French throne, he set the stage for a long, drawn-out conflict that, throughout time, would shape the course of history. There was Joan of Arc. She believed that she had special connection with higher powers. She had claimed to have visions and heard messages from both saints and angels, guiding her towards supporting the French cause. And then there was King Henry V, whom led his English troops into the Battle of Agincourt against the French. Despite being outnumbered, Henry V and his soldiers had managed to secure a remarkable victory. Among the key events that happened during this Hundred-Year War was the Battle of Sursey, 1346. The Treaty of Troyes, which happened in 1420, the Siege of Orleans, 1429, and the Battle of Castellon, 1453. This is the family tree of who was related to whom during that era. King Edward II of England was married to Isabella of France, who was related to King Charles IV of France. King Edward II and Isabella had a child, which was King Edward III. King Philip VI was also related distantly to King Charles IV, cementing his claim to the throne. Both King Edward III and King Philip VI believed that they had their rights to the French throne. Now, entering the naval Battle of Sluys, which happened in 1340. This was the first battle in the Hundred Years' War and took place at the port of Sluys in France, which is now known as present-day Sluys in Netherlands. The English were led by King Edward III, while the French were led by Hugo Squiertret and Nicolas Bouchet. The French fleet had outnumbered the English fleet, but the English had superior naval tactics and technology. The English's use of longbows and maneuverable ships called cogs. The next battle, which was the Battle of Sursey, 1346, was led by both King Edward III and King Philip IV, both English and French respectively. King Edward III had led the English army consisting of longbowmen, men-at-arms, knights, totaling to around 10,000 to 15,000 soldiers into northern France, aiming to advance towards Paris, while King Philip VI had assembled a larger army that included knights, crossbowmen, and Genoese mercenaries that totaled around 20,000 to 30,000 soldiers. Entering the next battle, which was the Battle of Poitiers, 1356. In 1355, the Prince of Wales had launched a Chevriche, which was a raiding campaign to destroy French land. Entering 1356, the Battle of Poitiers happened when King John II of France had confronted the Black Prince with a much larger army. During this battle, the English took victory again as their army was much more experienced, and King John II was captured. Enter the Treaty of Brittany, 1360. This was made between King Edward III of England and King John of France. This event was seen as the end of the first phase of the 100 Years' War. The terms of the treaty reads as follows. King Edward III of England will renounce his claim to the French throne, but was still granted extensive territories in France, which included Aquitaine, Gascony, Calais, Ponthieu, and Guienne. The English were given supremacy over these territories, with the right to rule and govern them independently of the French crown. A substantial ransom was agreed upon for the release of King John II of France, who had been held captive since the Battle of Poitiers. This is an example of a map of 15th century Europe. In the year 1369, the 100 Years' War between England and France had resumed after a period of peace. The English had launched raids and campaigns in France, aiming to control central territories. The French, now led by King Charles V, fought back using tactics like scorched earth and guerrilla warfare. This year marked the return to intense conflict in war. This is an example of a map in the year 1415. In the year 1415, during the 100 Years' War, one of the most famous battles took place, which was the Battle of Agincourt. This battle was a major English victory against a much larger French army. Despite both being heavily outnumbered, the English, now led by King Henry V, had used longbows to devastatingly affect the French knights who were bogged down in the muddy battlefield. This battle was famous for English longbowmen's success against the French cavalry, and it became the symbol of English military prowess. The victory at Agincourt was a significant moment in war, boosting the English morale and leading to further English successes in the following years. Entering the year 1420, the Treaty of Troyes was signed. This contract had declared that the King Henry V of England, not French Dauphin Charles, would succeed the French throne. It also mentioned that King Henry V would marry Catherine of Valois, who was the daughter of Charles VI. Through this treaty, English would be given control over large parts of France. In the year 1422, King Henry V died, leaving his infant son, King Henry VI, as King of England and France. This was only in the eyes of English. This period had marked a significant transition in the war, as the English were now ruled by a child king, while the French were regrouping under the leadership of King Charles VII, who would later be known for his role in the reconquest of French territories. The death of King Henry V also led to increased internal strife in England, as factions now vied for power and influence during the younger years of King Henry VI. In the year 1429, one of the most significant events occurred, which was the Siege of Orleans. This was a turning point in war, as the French, now led by Joan of Arc, successfully defended the city against the English. This battle boosted French morale and marked the beginning of a series of French victories that eventually led to the French reclaiming much of their territory from the English. Joan of Arc's role in the siege and her subsequent influence in the war made her a legendary figure in French history and current history now. Overall, in the year 1429, it was a pivotal moment in the 100 Years' War, shifting the momentum in favor of the French and now setting the stage for their eventual victory over the English. By the year 1431, the 100 Years' War between England and France had lasted almost 100 years. Joan of Arc was a young French peasant who had become a military leader. She had helped inspire the French with her visions and bravery. But in the end, she was captured by the Burgundians, who supported the English. She was handed over to the English and put on trial. She was accused of both heresy and witchcraft. This trial was both political and religious. She was found guilty and burned at the stake. Her death had hurt French morale but made her a powerful symbol in history. In the year 1450, the Battle of Harmony happened. In April 15, in Normandy, French forces were led by King Charles VII and Jean Brou. They fought against the English army. The French started to use new tactics, combining cavalry with cannons. These cannons helped break English defenses and weaken their longbow archers. This marked a change in medieval warfare. After this battle, the French took back Normandy from English control. Towns and lands held by the English were now returned to France. This victory showed the strength of the French army and symbolized France's comeback and helped lead to the end of the war. In the year 1453, July, the Battle of Castillon took place. This was the last major battle of the 100 Years' War. The French, now led by Jean Brou, defeated the English. They had used strong tactics and powerful artillery. The English forces were badly beaten, and this battle had marked the end of fighting in the war. This also marked the fall of English power in France. Overall, this battle lasted from 1337 to 1453. It was fought between England, Houses Plantagenet, and France's House of Valois. The main cause of conflict was the dispute over who should rule France. And it began when King Edward III of England had claimed the French throne, opposed by King Philip VI of France. Early battles such as Circe and Politis were big English victories. Edward, the Black Prince, had become a famous leader during this time. Entering this 15th century, the French began to win more battles. The historical figure, Joan of Arc, played a key role in boosting French morale and winning victories. This war ended in 1453, with England losing all its land in France except Calais. This war caused economical problems and unrest in England. In France, it helped build national unity and identity. The conflict also changed warfare, weapons, and the federal system. But how did this all affect the English language? Now, let's talk about that. Among the impacts and evolution English had during this time was dialect variation. The war in England had helped standardize the English language through interactions between both soldiers and merchants, resulting in the spread of certain linguistic features across the country. During this time, they also borrowed words from French. It helped this war heightened the English-French contact, introducing French loanwords into the language, including military terms and administrative terminology and words related to fashion, cuisine, and cultures. Words such as army, battle, siege, and cuisine all have French origins. The shifts of pronunciations of spelling. This war led to alterations in English pronunciation and their spelling conventions, with French loanwords now influencing the pronunciation of certain words, sounds, and standardized spellings like color and honor. How about its literary influence? Well, the 100 Years' War sparked a revival in English literature, with writers such as Chaucer and Gauvreau incorporating French loanwords and phrases, enriching and diversing this current English language. They did this all in their written work, such as poems or stories. Last but not least was the standardization and prestige. After this war, English became a prestigious language for literature, government, and diplomacy, leading to the now standardization and development of early modern English and King James Bible. That is all from me. Thank you for listening.